Bad news from Uganda has shaken the world. Welcome to Kenya Lens Media, where you get news updates the way they break. And if you're new here, kindly consider subscribing as a way of supporting us grow this platform. Now, Uganda's post-election tensions deepened sharply this week after opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi, widely known as Bobi Wine, accused the state security forces of killing opposition supporters, attacking senior party officials, and placing him under unlawful house arrest shortly after he voted in the national election. In a series of public statements released hours after polling day, the leader of the National Unity Platform, NUP, said security forces attacked the home of Mwanga Kivumbi, the party's deputy president for Buganda, resulting in the deaths of 10 supporters who were present. He further alleged that NUP's deputy presidents for the western and northern regions were abducted and assaulted in coordinated operations. At the same time, Wine and the soldiers surrounded his own residence, entered his compound without permission, and blocked all movement in or out of his home. Ugandan authorities have not confirmed their deaths or abductions, and no official explanation has been provided by the heavy military deployment around Bobi Wine's residence. However, human rights organizations and international observers say that the claims fit a long-documented pattern of post-election repression in Uganda, where opposition figures are often targeted by politically sensitive moments. According to Bobi Wine and NUP officials, the military surrounded his home in Magere, Wakiso district, shortly after he cast his ballot. Armed soldiers reportedly sealed off nearby roads, jumped over the perimeter fence, and established positions inside the compound. Bobi Wine said neither he nor his wife were allowed to leave, effectively placing him under house arrest without a warrant or court order. Security agencies have previously defended similar deployments by claiming that they are meant to protect his profile, or rather his high-profile political figure. Yet legal experts argue that such actions, when they restrict movement without due process, amount to arbitrary detention under Ugandan law. The Ugandan constitution guarantees freedom of movement and protection from unlawful confinement, rights that can only be limited under strict legal conditions. In January 2021, Uganda's High Court ruled that security forces must end a similar siege on Bobi Wine's home, stating that the state had no legal authority to confine a citizen without formal charges or unlawful detention order. The most serious allegation raised by Bobi Wine concerns the reported killing of 10 NUP supporters at the home of Mwanga Kivumbi, a senior opposition figure and a member of parliament. According to Wine, the supporters were attacked during an evening operation by the security forces. Independent verification of the deaths has not been possible, and the police have issued a statement addressing the claims. However, Uganda has a long record of election-related killings and excessive use of force, particularly involving opposition supporters. During the 2020-2021 election cycle, at least 54 people were killed during protests after security forces opened fire on demonstrators, according to the Uganda Human Rights Commission and Amnesty International of February 2021. Human rights groups note that delayed or absent official responses to such allegations often prevent accountability and deepen public mistrust in state institutions. The disputed security actions come amid widespread concerns about the credibility of Uganda's election. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, in power since 1986, is seeking to extend his rule for another term following preliminary results showing him with a large lead. International media and observer groups reported multiple irregularities on polling day, including deployment of soldiers at voting centers, disruptions to opposition strongholds, and limitations to independent monitoring. Internet access was also restricted, a move authorities justified on security grounds, but with critics say undermines transparency. The European Parliament and the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights have previously warned that elections held in an environment of intimidation cannot be considered free or fair. where Bobi Wine's allegations suggest a broader strategy aimed at weakening the opposition leadership structure immediately after the vote. The reported abduction of NUP deputy president for the western region and the attack on the northern region deputy president mirror tactics used in previous election cycles, where mid-level opposition leaders were detained or assaulted to disrupt coordination and public communication. According to 2023 report by Freedom House, Uganda consistently scores poorly on political pluralism and participation, with opposition parties facing systematic harassment, arrests and violence during elections, and such actions, analysts say, are often designed not only to suppress protest, but also to send a warning to supporters that resistance will be met with force. As a publication, Uganda Police and Uganda People's Defense Force UPDF have not issued detailed statements responding to Bobi Wine's specific allegations. In past incidents, authorities have rejected claims of targeted repression, instead accusing opposition figures of inciting unrest or spreading misinformation. President Museveni's government has repeatedly argued that strong security measures are necessary to prevent chaos, citing Uganda's history of civil conflict. However, critics argue that this justification is increasingly used to normalize repression and silence dissent rather than to address genuine security threats. Uganda's post-election tensions are not new. Since the return of multi-party politics in 2005, every election has been followed by allegations of intimidation, violence, and legal harassment of opposition leaders. Bobi Wine himself has been arrested numerous times since entering politics in 2017. He has previously alleged torture while in military custody, claims that drew international condemnation but resulted in no prosecutions. Scholars of East African politics know that Uganda represents a model of electoral authoritarianism where elections are held regularly but are managed through coercive state power to ensure predictable outcomes. The allegations raised by Bobi Wine, if substantiated, point to a serious violation of human rights and the rule of law at a critical moment in Uganda's political life. The reported killing of supporters, attacks on opposition leaders, and confinement of presidential candidates without legal process undermine constitutional protections and weaken public trust in democratic institutions. For Ugandans, the issue goes beyond one election or one political figure. It speaks to whether political change can occur peacefully through the ballot or whether state power will continue to override popular will through fear and force. For the region and the international community, Uganda's strategic trajectory matters because it influences democratic norms in East Africa. Continued silence or inaction in the face of credible abuse allegations risks normalizing repression and eroding the standards that underpin stability, development, and international cooperation. As election results are finalized and the political tensions remain high, the response of state institutions, particularly their respect for life, law, and political freedoms, will shape Uganda's future for more than the vote count alone. That is all for today from Kenya Lens Media, and kindly, if you're new here, consider subscribing as a way of supporting this platform grow.